welcome to In the Rising podcast. My name is Bettina Brown, and this is the platform I've chosen to talk about living a life that's in alignment with your hopes, your dreams, moving that needle towards your North Star on your personal life compass, turning your back, walking away from things that are only going to bring you down, shame, blame, indecision, and lack of movement. My guest today is Paula Telizyn. She is out of Canada and love the way she pronounces some of her words, but just a really phenomenal woman who is a business owner, who's an author, now working on one-on-one consulting because she has done the solopreneur on her own for so long and been successful that she knows how you can walk away from your job so that you're running your business instead of your business running you. I'm really eager to share this episode with you. Well, thank you, Paula, for being with me today on In the Rising podcast. I'm super excited to speak with you. And you are in Canada today, or all the time.
Yeah. Well, all the time. Yes, I'd say 99.9% of the time.
And I was really fascinated about your story from a couple areas. For one, that you've built companies from the ground up. And then another part where you started over. And so I'd like to kind of go into both of those. Can you talk about where you've decided to have the guts and the courage to build and be an entrepreneur?
I never wanted to be an entrepreneur. I wanted the job security. It's why I went into technology in the 90s when the internet was still coming up. And I was, part of some really impressive new things happening in Toronto, in Canada at the time. And then I got pregnant, not by accident, on purpose. And I thought, well, just, shove the baby in daycare and keep going. And that's not what happened. I looked at her and went, she's vulnerable. We had only 6 months, a 6-month maternity leave in Canada at the time. So I just looked at her at 6 months and went, I can't. She has no voice, no ability to say if she's been mistreated. And I went, okay, I'll see if my job will let me work remote. And they wouldn't. So I quit. And that left me with, I was married at the time, and that left me with no choice. It was, if I was going to stay home with my kid, I needed to figure out how to earn an income. Mm-hmm. So I never wanted to be an entrepreneur. It was really stressful. I come from a whole line of entrepreneurs, so I don't know why I didn't want to be, but there we go. And I built the business from the ground up, just one client at a time, one person at a time, one project at a time, until I was making like a lot of money, and also helping clients because I focused on e-learning and not-for-profit. Helping them build their businesses up through the work I was doing. So it was kind of accidental entrepreneurship, or maybe entrepreneurship out of love. Hard to say, but it was the best choice. And I went on to spawn 2 more, I'm miscounting, and stayed home with them as well, baby in the arm and typing with the other, until the little buggers got too big and I had to stick them in a cage. So,
which sometimes we want to.
Yeah, exactly. No, it's just a playpen, but they got to be home with me for the most part, and that was really important as a parent, because you only get that time once, and I could do it. So computer, brains, tech manual, and I just, went out and built my business. Wow. And it was so worth it.
It is. And, I think for me, having a child now who's 11 and feeling like, I did the best I could, but I definitely missed so much that I'm getting tighter with the time and who I'm willing to give it to, including my child. This is your time. This is not. And so feeling that, yes, this is completely possible. And with entrepreneurship, there's so much hard work. Maybe that's, it is, it is just you. And that's the benefit. What people say, I want to own my own business. It's just me, but it is just you, it is.
And if you don't work, you don't get paid, which was the sort of thing I was back in the early 2000s. That was the mantra I had. If I don't work, I don't get paid. It's a great way to develop self-discipline, but it's a shit way to run a business.
Yeah.
It was a lot of stress. And then the idea, we now know, thanks to the pandemic, that employment is more secure. It's not, but that was the idea back then. So I had to battle that sort of mindset where, what am I doing and who's going to hire me? And it was just the fact that it was either do this or put my kid in daycare. Mm-hmm. That was it. So, it wasn't a lot of choice.
Wow. And you also said that you were working this company, doing really well, and then you had a major life shift where you had to start over. And that resonated with me because it was a life shift for me, but so many others. Would you be willing to share some of that and what you learned?
Absolutely. So I'm Eastern European. I'm just going to put that out there, and very dramatic. So my life shifts happen very dramatically. It's, people go, well, I'm kind of feeling unhappy. Maybe I should do something. I needed a billboard. I needed a sign. I needed like life-changing notifications. I knew for a while I was unhappy. I went to school for art, of all things, and ended up in programming, which, that was my hobby. So I loved it anyway. And I've been unhappy for a while in my marriage and the life I had built. I felt very trapped. I was supporting 5 people, including myself, a horse and 3 cats. So it was a lot of pressure, and my ex didn't work. So it was just a lot. And I started thinking, well, okay, maybe I can't do anything about my pressure. I can't do anything about my stress, but maybe I can at least go to those social painting nights. Maybe I can get back into art, because I was always a painter. So I went to those things. And the one that changed my life was in 2015 in March. And I went to that night. Now I'm looking at this woman who'd built a business around teaching people how to relax and paint and have a glass of wine and whatever. And I'm thinking, why can't I do this? What's wrong with me that I have to really feel trapped and stressed, and I'm producing a lot of work, but I'm doing it at the cost of my own health. And I was thinking that as I'm driving home 10 o'clock at night on 401, which in Canada is our busiest highway in Ontario. It's like a insanely busy highway. So I'm driving along, and I'm in a left lane doing 100 and something, which is in kilometers, not miles. And this car's beside me in the middle lane and the right lane, and there's no shoulder. And so I'm thinking about, my life and how much I just felt like as I was getting closer to home, I was putting this weight on me, and I could see car lights facing me, coming towards me in a really bad example of that math problem, 2 trains coming at each other. Yes. There shouldn't be car lights coming towards you on a divided highway, not in your lane, not at all. No. I was just like looking at that going, I can't believe this is happening. And, it was my, can I swear on this podcast? This was my holy shit fuck moment. Like I wasted my life. I wasted my entire life. I was 42 at the time. So I was just facing these lights, and I'm thinking, I never did anything I wanted to do. Yeah, I built a great, home for my kids. We had a large home. We had, a good size for what I thought property. We were stable, we were comfortable, we were well off, but I was miserable. Yeah. And I had wasted my life. None of the things I wanted to do, I did. None of the things. So I was sitting there going, fuck, and being really angry. And I never saw like my life flashing before my eyes. It was just more like that epiphany. And I don't know what happened. Obviously I survived, because spoilers, I'm here. But, it just, I don't know if the car passed me, or, well, obviously it passed me, but I don't know how. Like maybe a shoulder appeared because the shoulder came and went. So maybe I hit the point where there was a shoulder or whatever. That was kind of irrelevant, because I knew once it went past me that every second, and then every minute, and then every hour was golden. It was a plus. It was a gift. Right. So I may have left the paint night my usual self, but when I came home, I was not, because I knew that I shouldn't be there. There was no reason for me to still be alive. And that if I wasn't going to do something with that profound, insanely dramatic, only I could get that kind of message, it would be a slap in the face to having received that. Right. To whatever you believe in. My mind is open, but, not wide enough for my brains to follow. Whatever you believe in, it would be a slap in the face for that chance, that opportunity. So I went home and I thought, what can I do? Immediately, my painting levels increased. I stopped holding myself back. My paintings became really good. And I just thought, I could make a go at this. I know how to run a business. I could be a full-time professional portrait artist, which is all I ever wanted to be. Even as a 16-year-old, I kept telling my teachers I want to be a portrait artist. And I told my husband, probably by July, I had built up some work, and I decided I want to do this. I go, you know what? I want to be a portrait artist. I want to change the business. I can't do this any longer. I'm going to die at my desk. And he said, no. And that was the moment. That was the first major crack in the marriage. Now, looking back, there were a lot of things I should have seen, prior to that. But that for me was the first moment I became aware that he did not have my back. And I ignored him because I just felt like, fuck you. And, and I spent that September. So from March to September, I was making changes. That September, I spent 30 days trying to make 30 paintings. So working full time in my business, being responsible for my children, and then painting at night. I think I got four or 5 hours of sleep a night. And I made 25 paintings, 21 were good. And I was like, what do I do with this stuff? Like, I didn't know what to do next because I had been running a business that was taking over so well. I didn't really know how to market art. But then somebody reached out to me and said, you know what, in 9 days, we're having a show and we need you there. Because I'd been posting on social media. And then somebody else said, we're doing a pop-up art show. Can you come and also be on the radio? And somebody else said, guess what? We have another show and we want to feature you in it, blah, blah, blah. And it just sort of built up from there. I got a rep and then I fired her. And I got a whole bunch of opportunities. And every time an opportunity came by, I said yes to it. Like, yes, it scared me. Yes. Can you do it? Yes. I'd figure it out later. Right. It just, because I kept thinking I'm living now in bonus time.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. And it would just, that just kept me going. Absolutely. So yeah.
And I hear that because I am a physical therapist. I work primarily with women who have gone through breast cancer. And, you know, some it can or cannot, you know, we all know it can't, you can live with it or what have not, go in remission, etc. But this bonus time is where I'm getting at, that there is a change, that they'll say there was a before and there's an after. And if I'm in this place, I need to feel that something I've done is significant. Not that parenthood is not significant, it is, but also something where you yourself are not a role, but an actual person, like you're Paula out there, not just Paula the mom.
Yeah.
And even though that's huge, and I'm also a mom, so I'm not taking that down, but this bonus time is so huge, and that you honored that and went forward anyway is also very courageous, because you had not, it was, even though it was a passion and a love and you were good at it, it was uncharted territory, right? You reinvented in the middle of life.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. And it was really doubly difficult because I hadn't realized that my ex had been kicking me down subtly over the years. So I had isolated myself from family and friends. I didn't believe in myself. Every time I showed him a painting, because we met in art school, but he wasn't creating art. He would tell me everything that was wrong with it. Like, it was a constant beat down. And yet I kept going. So it was like, I wasn't even just starting at zero where a lot of people start. I was starting at like negative 50. I had to actually dig myself up to get to ground level before I could even build myself up. So it was quite a haul to do that. Yeah. And bonus time is so, I think it's such a gift, right? It's such a gift. And I knew if I wanted changes, I had to make changes. I kept saying nothing changes if nothing changes. Run towards your fear, get that adrenaline, create that courage. Like, I was just like being a cliche to myself, but it worked. It absolutely worked. So in the 5 years that I ran my art business, I had my art in international shows. I had my art in the hands of celebrities. I went over to Spain to have an international group show. I was represented by 3 different galleries, things like that. Like, big stuff happened. Like, there's no reason why an artist can't sell art, especially in this day and age. You get online, you have access to a global audience. So that was huge. Embracing that adrenaline and that change and stepping off the path. It made a huge difference. But I didn't expect my kids to change. And I think this is really important, especially for anybody who's listening, who's thinking, I want to make a change, but it's going to harm my kids. I was really afraid of harming my children. And they immediately pivoted when they saw me pivot. And so they were, at the time, I think my oldest was in grade 7. So my kids are now 14, 16, and 21. But back then, it's a few years back, they saw me choose my happiness and choose myself and choose my dreams. And they went from sort of existing, knowing that they'd go to school and then get a job and then, retire and die, to actually embracing their lives. So my oldest kid spent 2 years prepping her portfolio and got accepted into the art high school here in London. And my second kid thought, I can make stuff. I can make props from video games. He's a boy. I can build things. I can try new things. Put together his portfolio, got accepted to the art school in London. And my youngest is heading there this September because they got accepted into the art school in London.
Wow.
Yeah. And back then we didn't live in London. You had to have special, permission to be there. So it was huge for them to get in and choose themselves. And they're all going on their own paths. They're all going to have different creative lives, because I don't expect them to copy me, but I expect them to choose themselves first. Mm-hmm. And if I had known that choosing me and my dreams would make things better for my kids, I never would have hesitated. I never would have needed that giant certain death experience, dramatic thing happening, because I would have gone, this is good for my kids. It's good for me. Booyah, let's do it. Right. Yeah. But I was so afraid of shaking things up and making things worse, because you hear about, and maybe it's not true, but I'd heard about, broken families and kids ending up on addiction issues and whatever. And I'm like, I'm just going to hold a family together by just as tight as I can, no matter what it costs me. But it turned out that wasn't the right way. And so that was just absolutely massive.
Yeah. And I'm not going on a tangent, but having been on both sides, right. And realizing the sacrifice it does take for those that do choose to stay together, your children still know, and they still know, and they still witness, they still observe, but their happiness does not grow. It's not between pain and no pain. It's just between short-term pain and long-term pain. And then it is an easier shift to say, I'll go through the short term. That sounds a little bit better than this long-term, which then affects generations down. But you have changed like the generations. Should your children have children or anyone they're around, their glow is now different. So you've made such a huge impact by following what your heart and your passion is, not just, and you're still getting a paycheck from it, right? It's not just between security and not, but really believing in yourself has made that difference.
Yeah, it makes a huge, huge difference. And, my marriage ended in alcohol and violence, and not my alcohol, not my violence. But my kids were very grateful that I chose at that point to pull the plug when things got violent, right? I didn't stay. There was nothing. I lost everything, and they were still happy. That my 12-year-old at the time thanked me for giving them a more secure life and a calmer life. And when I thought I was holding things together for their benefit, I wasn't. I was keeping them in a situation that demonstrated what marriage is, and it wasn't healthy, because the more I got into my art business, the more my ex got unpleasant to live with, more and more and more. So, making those changes, as hard as it was to say, guess what? The life we had, it's gone. Ended up benefiting everybody dramatically. So, and I can't imagine living in COVID with him now anyway, but it's important. And I wish somebody had said that the most selfish act is actually the most generous act. So my kids now get to see what it means in all aspects, not just business, not just creativity, but in all aspects, to choose yourself, to leave a relationship that gives you a defined path for the unknown, because the path is horrible. It's a torment. And I hope that they continue to take that into their lives, that when they have relationships that don't work, as my oldest did, that they leave them, even though they're familiar and comfortable.
Mm-hmm. Yes. And there is a term called dysfunctional comfort. And many of us can stay in that, whether it is with our job, because it's secure, with relationships, with the way we look, the way we do anything, because it is the same. And so it does take that. And you said you gave yourself all the cliches. Where did you listen to podcasts? And again, I know things have shifted. Did you read books, or did you just have this inner fire within you and you just pulled from that?
I don't know that podcasts existed back then, because that's 2015. Do they really kind of exist?
Yeah, they're not as much as now, but there are a few. Yeah.
Yeah. So what I did was, I knew, because I'm a strange breed of logical creative, right? Because of all the programming and the math and stuff, but there's a huge element of creativity in that. And so what I went was, okay, what do I have and what do I need? And I needed inspiration, direction, and information. So I started Googling things. So I looked up art coaches. I looked up running an online business, because I knew things had changed since I'd set up. So my business was taking over beautifully. And I looked up a whole bunch of stuff. So I started getting, reading things from Denise Duffield Thomas. She does the Lucky Bit. She's a money guru. Leonie Dawson, Martin Steller, all these people, Corey Huff, all these people who either did business or mindset or both, and just absorbed everything. everything. And I guess I was an avid reader. I mean, insanely avid reader, even before then, because my business and e-learning focused on publishing. So I read everything that came across my desk, no matter what, because it was just words and ideas and wonderful things. So all of that came back out. And when I was in the process of separating from my marriage and exploding my life, and I call it running through my life with swords, I wrote a book. And all of the stuff that I had taken in and experienced and used to help myself, I wrote a book, and hopefully it would help other people in that process as well. So yeah, it was an absorbing of everything. Like I was just a sponge.
Yeah. Yeah. And what's great is that there is no time limit of when we can absorb, right? We don't have to stop growing. We talk about all the go things, we get married, we do this, we do that. And then it's just like this, and then that's it, and that's not it. And that doesn't have to be it. And your website, 0% Luck, where'd you come up with that? And how did where did that phrase quote come from?
Okay, well, there's a tiny bit of a story for that too, because after my marriage ended and I found myself in a new town and renting a house for the first time in my life, I couldn't produce enough art to support us because I was traumatized. My kids were traumatized and everything else. And one of my friends who I knew as a fellow artist and I decided to team up and form a business. And we formed a business that helped artists sell their art online. But it wasn't a good match. She's a wonderful person. I love her dearly, but I'm a very focused, very driven worker. And she is more of a hippie style, which is fine. And it worked for a while, but we've just actually ended the business last month. So while I knew the business was ending, because I had sort of done all the projections and everything else months ago, I knew I had to come up with something. And my name was already being used for my art and my writing, my creative projects. So I couldn't use my name to run a new business. And I'm like, okay, so what's the foundation of businesses? Why do businesses fail? And a lot of businesses fail because they think that they can manifest stuff. They can dream it into action. And manifesting is really a psychological thing. You create this cognitive resonance and all that, and you start building it because your brain wants to create what you're imagining. And I thought, okay, so there's no luck in business. It's systems, it's action, it's planning, it's goal setting. There's no luck in business. There's no luck in business, 0% luck. Mm-hmm. And so the actual specific phrase, ironically, is on a book, a journal that I was given. It was, 100% hustle, 0% luck. And it matched what I was saying. I'm like, 0% luck can't be taken.com, right? It can't be taken, or it should be taken. And I Googled it and it was like, no, it's available. I jumped on it and I thought, yep, your success is 0% luck. That's the bottom line. So my new business is helping solopreneurs, specifically women, get focused, get themselves streamlined, get everything behind the scenes organized so that they can have more reach and more money. Because that's what I know how to do, right? I know how to get focused. I know how to do it in the worst circumstances. I know how to do it with kids at home for 17 months. I mean, thank goodness in the last 17 months, my kids are teenagers. They don't need me to pull Legos out of their nose or whatever, but, but there's still that being aware that, are they doing their work? Are they homeschooling appropriately? Things like that. I know how to do all of that and still produce books and still produce content and still have clients and still run a business. And you do so by being uber efficient. So that's what it's all about. 0% luck is just, exactly what this says on the tin.
And you said you help solopreneurs with, is there a specific category of business, or you don't care what category? Your category is working with women who are now looking to build their business.
Yeah, I was initially started focusing on coaches and all that. And I just thought, that's not wide enough because women have been left behind in the pandemic. Mm-hmm. And so rather than niching on an industry, I'm niching on what I offer. So I'm helping women who have already started running the business. So this is not from the ground up, but they're already running, streamline things. Because I don't want to teach somebody how to open a PDF. I don't want to teach them, you need to get a website or whatever. But I will go in and say, this is what's not working. This is where your messaging is off. What's going on behind the scenes? Let's drop this and this and this. So I had a client and I had them drop like 3 of the things they were doing that weren't efficient, weren't serving them. I said, you could pick them back up in 6 months. Let's re-examine it. But right now it's taking your time and effort, just things like that. So it's not even like generic courses that you can take and go, 5 things you should know to run your business. Take this course, $99. It's not. It's literally sitting down and going through and analyzing in a fun way, because I don't do boring. How can we make your business more efficient and work better for you so that you have more free time? Because I mean, who goes into business saying, gosh, I'd love to work 50 hours a week, neglect my children and watch my houseplants die? You know,
Yeah.
you want to be efficient and you want to walk away. Right. The way I couldn't from my tech company, you want to be able to walk away and go, things are still taking over. There's still things happening that are bringing money in. I'm not under that constant pressure to work 63 weeks a year, which obviously don't exist.
Right.
You know,
and that's a huge part, because there is, going through different things, even with a podcast, the amount of time that this takes, and you really have to enjoy it. But there's also, it's nice when I do a whole month worth of content and I can take the month off from it and know I just spend one day organizing and then I can continue, but I still have that reach all day, every day. And so you're not running the business. It's still running, but you're helping, you're helping grow it, but it's not running you down. Right. Because then there's no point to that. Then go back to security.
Exactly.
Get run down with that.
Yeah. No, I mean, the business should not be running you. That's the bottom line.
Yes. And so right now, what do you envision for your future? Where are you rising up to now?
I always want to have some kind of positive impact, right? Community means everything to me, giving back to community, participating in community. And I don't mean locally, I mean just the community that I choose. So it can be global. In this case, women entrepreneurs. I want to make sure that if anybody needs that help, if they need, that kind of support that oftentimes business owners need, and I didn't have in my first business, that there's somebody there who maybe they can relate to. Maybe they don't find my sense of humor terrible, and that I can help make a difference, because the people I've helped so far have had huge impact outward, right? Because when women are making money, the money goes back into communities, it goes back into families, it goes back into the economy, that we're all better off when women do. So my goals with this business are to help as many women as possible to create their own dreams, at the same time that obviously I'm supporting my own children on my own. We create a better world for our families that ripples outwards, that their kids, if they have them, can create changes in their own lives by reflecting their mother's lives, right? That kind of thing. So impact is really, really important to me. I don't want to just have a business for money, but money isn't evil. I want to have a business that feeds my soul, feeds the community, and feeds my kids.
I hope you enjoyed this podcast with Paula. I love the way she talked about being a unique kind of person who's illogical and creative. And perhaps that's you, who really loves numbers, but really knows that being creative is essential, and it is an essential part of your own being. She talks about her own courage moments, her moment when she said herself that was a life and death. And hopefully we don't all have to experience that, but so many of us had, right? When we're really on the bottom and the only place to look is up. Sometimes literally. So if you enjoyed this podcast, I encourage you to leave a 5-star review. It helps move this podcast into the hands and ears of those that really need it. And I encourage you to share it with any of your friends that you feel would be benefited from this. And check out Paula's information down below. You can reach out and contact her. She is open literally for business and is excited to work with especially women entrepreneurs. And until next time, let's keep building one another up.